Right, very nice to see everybody. Especially good to hear from Tommy, given that farmer side of the local food for schools issue. I'd like to talk about it from the school side. My experience with it, being a former school board member here in our district, and this was one of my favorite things to learn about, is that our school district has participated in trying to buy fresh local food from our local farmers for quite some time. And as Tommy pointed out, this got a big boost during the Biden administration through the USDA to lift this program up.
What's your name?
My name's Frank Broz. And I want to point this out not just because it's a real tragedy that it's gone, tragedy for farmers, tragedy for students, but also because it's similar to a lot of other programs that schools take advantage of that are funded at the federal level. And seeing how quickly this could be absolutely deleted for no reason should strike fear into your heart as to what can happen to other programs that are federally funded in our local school districts. Part of when I was looking into the program, I learned a lot of the stuff that Tommy said, but I found this progress report from the Iowa State Extension Office for this first year that it came through, and it was very illuminating to me. And just from the school side, to add a little bit, there was over 100 school districts that have been taking part in this program. It's not just affecting a lot of farmers, it's affecting a lot of schools. And all this money went toward food and storage of food and distribution of food. It really wasn't something that was going to administrative costs or anything like that. It really was all very well accounted for. And the food involved too wasn't processed food. It had to be minimally processed. It was fresh fruits and vegetables. It was in some cases fresh meat, yogurt, cheese, stuff like that. All these things that our kids in school need nutritious food like that to be healthy and to learn. As Tommy said, on March 11th, it was just completely cut under the guise of waste, fraud, and abuse. And there was no waste. It was a big mistake. And in fact, when the Iowa State Extension Office studied the impact of this, what they found is for every dollar that was spent for the local Food for Schools program, you got $1.94 of economic impact positively in the local areas where it was used. That's right. And to me, the opposite of waste is an investment. And that's what this program was. And in fact, it was a small investment. In Iowa, you're talking about $600,000 per year that schools spend on this food. You're very rightly saying most of this stuff is millions of dollars, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions. And for a place like Iowa to have that kind of impact from a small amount and deleting it is just such a huge mistake, in my opinion.
Huh.
Huge mistake. And so what I want to point out too is this is a fairly small amount of money, but the National School Lunch Program, which is also through the USDA and impacts our farmers a lot, that is similar in some ways. It is funded through the federal government. It's on the order of $17 billion a year for the entire nation. But when you look at how easy it was to get rid of the local schools for food program, which affected all students, rich and poor, and then you look at how a lot of the National School Lunch Program affects those families that need extra assistance, right? When I went to school here, approximately 25% of the students were on free and reduced lunch, which is, an indication that their families needed extra help, and the indication that some of those students, sometimes when they came into school, they wouldn't have had the nutrition that they needed, right? Now in our local school district that covers our county and pieces of surrounding counties, we're at approximately 50%. That's not been that long. We're talking about, 25 years difference. And many, many more of our students and families require programs like these to be able to get the nutrition that they need and their ability to learn. And as easily as this $1 billion went away, that $17 billion could also go away. And in fact, our representative, Marinette Miller Meeks, who I would have hoped would fight for our local farmers and our local students, I do not have confidence that she would raise her hand and say, you can't take this. I think she would be in favor of it. And I am sad to say that, but that's what I think would happen. So we need a representative who will not just raise their hand, but who will fight and say, you're not going to take the food away from the kids that need it.
Yes.
And similar to these programs, nutrition is important. Nutrition is a big part of it. But the more you get involved in our school, the more you see areas where this important federal funding lifts up students and helps families all over the place. We have an after-school program at Fairfield Community School District that is fantastic. It serves many hundreds of students throughout the year, and it kind of covers that time between when kids get out of school and parents get off of work. That allows a lot of parents to have more flexibility in their careers, for students to get extra homework help, and they get a snack, a federally provided, nutrition for some of those kids who might not have a lot for dinner when they get home. A lot of people, even people who are involved in that program, they see it as coming through the state of Iowa because it is administered through the state. You apply to the Iowa Department of Education, and that's who oversees the program. I think they do a pretty good job of overseeing that program. But that's not where the money comes. The money comes from the federal government, and it passes through the state. And I don't think that the people who cut this food for students would have any problem also cutting the after-school program for those same students. And that affects all those families the same way. And you can see this all throughout the district. There's extra support for reading. Maybe you've heard of Title I teachers. That's a federally funded program that figures out which students need a little bit of extra help with reading and takes that money, and it's intense. I'll tell you, I've been in there in the title reading room where those teachers are working very intensely with these groups of students. You'll have kids come in for 15 minutes, and they are just lifting them up with that money. And I think it could go away just as easily as the local Food for Schools program went away, and with as little of an objection from our representative. And so, this is one area that I learned a lot about because I was on school board. I was very interested in learning about this. If I was on the hospital board, I could probably be telling you stories like this about the hospital. If I was in law enforcement, state and local, I could probably be telling you stories like this about that too. And it's important to learn about how these things work. It's important to talk to your representative and expect your representative to fight for these programs that are not wasteful, they're investments. And if there is fraud, fine, show it to us. That's not what we had here. So that's really all I wanted to say, but I'm glad to see you all here. It's very nice to hear from these other panelists, and I'm going to be looking for more opportunities to do things, to try to connect with our representative. I've had a hard time of it, as everybody else here has indicated, but I'm not going to stop, and I hope you don't stop either.
Yeah.